Hello, this video will discuss Chapter 4 materials out of the Computers in the Medical Office textbook, and that chapter for Chapter 4, titled Entering Patient Information, begins on page 135 in the textbook. Let me open up Metasoft and we'll get started. Now this is where we'll spend a good deal of time, and this is where we usually start whenever we're ready to put in new patient information. So this is the good stuff here. From the main screen, when you open up Metasoft, you want to select Lists and the first option, Patients, Guarantors, and Cases. And as you look at this, you can see on the left side of the screen you have a list of patients, and on the right-hand screen, which is a lot of white, you'll notice it has something at the top that says List of Cases for. This will be Chapter 5 information. We'll discuss this. I don't want to spend any time on it tonight. I want to spend most of our time here on the left-hand portion of the screen. So let's kind of see how things are laid out. We have a search for box and a chart number, and I'll discuss that in a bit. And then we have these buttons that are called radio buttons right beside the word patient and case. And it appears no matter which one you make active, nothing changes on the screen except, bring your eyes down here to this row of buttons at the bottom. We have everything having to deal with patient. When we have the patient radio button active, when we make the case button active, they change to case. So that can be one of the more frustrating things if you forget. Make sure if you're trying to work with patient information, you have that patient button active. Or what you can do is simply click on that side of the screen, and the case or patient button will toggle appropriately based on which side of the screen you're clicking on. But know that whenever you want to access these buttons dealing with one or the other, you need to make sure the appropriate side is addressed. Everything dealing with the patient is on the left side of the screen. Everything dealing with a case, which we'll talk about next time, is on the right side of the screen. The case, just as a quick definition, is the reason why the patient is here to see us. You can see here I have Herbert Bell highlighted, and he was here for an annual exam. Last time prior to that he had swollen glands and a fever. So just so that you understand that. Okay, so let's look at this left-hand side of the screen. We can tailor it to our needs. We can simply make it bigger or smaller by grabbing the middle dividing bar and getting a double-headed arrow and then moving it back and forth. Okay. And over here we have columns with titles at the top. We have chart number, name, date of birth, etc. all the way through. You'll notice that some columns don't have anything in them while others do. And there are also colors. Look at all the pretty colors on this screen. Well, I'll explain all of those things as we work our way through this. Let's look at the columns first. Chart numbers, and we'll discuss in a moment how we create a chart number. We can organize our patients by chart number simply by clicking on this word chart number, and it will order things in alphabetic order. And I can make this, by the way, I can make this column bigger as well to show me their chart number. And when I do that, you can see this upward pointing arrow indicating that it's in ascending order, A to Z. If I click on that again, it will do reverse order in alphabetic order. Okay, so that's a nice feature. If you're looking for someone or something and you would like to just find them from here, notice that the colors stay with the patients, and again I'll explain that in a moment. I cannot sort by their name. If you try it, you'll see that it says you can't sort by this. I can sort by their date of birth in ascending order or descending order. I can sort by social security number. Patient type, I have only patients here. I can sort by phone number. I can sort by doctor. I can sort by last name. Okay, so those are nice little features to be aware of here. I'm going to go back to and sort by chart number here because that's my own personal preference. If I'm searching for someone and before I do this, let me indicate there is a black arrow on the far left side of the screen. That's indicating when it's pointing at a particular patient, that indicates that that patient is the one that's highlighted, that you plan on getting into, opening up, editing, whatever you're trying to do. Notice when I click on Anthony Batistuta, the black arrow moves from Susan Arlen down there. So as you click, and it gives that bright blue highlight color. That's another way that you can know that you're on that particular patient. Okay. So let's say I wanted to search for someone whose last name begins with Smith. If I just type SMI, it filters my patients and just pulls up anyone whose last name is Smith. So, picking a common name like that, or, lots of common names out there, you don't want to, I'm going to go back to the main screen simply by erasing that SMI. You don't want to have to scroll through again and again and again. This database that we currently have isn't too bad. There aren't that many patients in here. So I can sort by chart number, or let's say if I change my field for sorting and I look for, let's look by Social Security number, and I'm going to look for someone whose Social Security number begins with an 8. There you go. It narrows the field down. So that's what those fields are for. Let me clear that out again. Notice that there is a button to the right of the search field, and it gives me a little bit more, a few more options, I guess, to sort. And I could change the field here as well. Okay, so just some nice features. I'm going to go back to chart number just to kind of keep it the same as it was before. Okay, now notice also there are different colors. That is, I'll explain that in just a moment. How about we talk about what a chart number is? Let's go to that next. You'll notice, and I'm going to open up Susan Arlen, and to do that I make sure she's highlighted, and I can either select Edit Patient or I can double click on her name. And this is what the window will look like once I do that. And you'll see there are 3 tabs across the top here. And we're going to work our way through these, starting with the chart number. Chart number is defined for you on page 137 in your book. It is the number that is assigned to the patient, and each patient gets their own unique identifying chart number. No 2 chart numbers can be alike. The software won't allow it. That's a nice built-in feature of the software. Now, if we do not assign a chart number, in other words, if we don't create the chart number for the patient, the software will do it for us. And I'd like you to create these chart numbers. And there are guidelines for that. You'll see those on page 138 in your book. How to create a chart number. Now, like I said, in the real world, you might not have to do that. You let the software do it, but I'm asking that you do this here just to learn it. Every software program is different. This particular software program requires 8 characters, and the characters can be numbers or letters, but you cannot use periods, spaces, or dashes. So no special characters, but numbers or letters. For us to do this, we're going to take the first 5 letters of the last name, followed by the first 2 letters of the first name, and the 8th character will always be the number 0. Not the letter O or a capital O, it will be the number 0. So you'll notice with Susan Arlen, we took A-R-L-E-N, S-U for the first 2 letters of her first name, followed by the number 0. If a patient has less than 5 letters in their last name, we would take all of them and then pull an extra 1 or 2 or however many we needed from the first name. If their first and last names both were very short, we would just add zeros after that or numbers after that. So I want you to practice that, and you'll see the guidelines for that on page 138, and look at exercise 4.1 at the bottom of the page. All you have to do is write in the chart numbers for the patients. So our first patient is Albert Wong. He's a great example of a last name that only has 4 letters in it. And we want 5. So we do W-O-N-G, and then we'll steal one from the first name, A. W-O-N-G-A, and then 2 more letters from the first name, L-B, and then followed by the number 0. Jessica Sypkowski, S-Y-P-K-O-J-E 0, and John James, J-A-M-E-S-J-O 0. And if you make an error when you create the chart number, you cannot get up here after you save the patient information. After you get up here, you cannot delete it again. You can't correct it. That's what I was looking for. So make sure you're careful when you do that. If you do make an error, and I'll show you that in a minute. Let me go through the rest of this information here. So you'll see here we capture the demographic information, contact information, all that we can think of: email, home, work, cell, fax, birth date, gender, birth weight if it's a newborn, units of that birth weight in grams or pounds, social security number, entity type. Sometimes you might need to create a chart number for a company or a business or something like that in those rare cases. I've not done that here in this textbook, but that always is a possibility, and they allow that here. The race of the patient, if you know it, the ethnicity, if they filled it out, their language. We won't fill in the death date. That's only if a patient passes away. Notice on the far right side of the screen here, we have a Save, Cancel, and Help button. We have a Set Default button, which you don't want to click on because you can change the fields in your window here. If you click on Set Default, if you've done something, if I click on this, it says, are you sure you want to save all these fields as defaults for all new records? So just wanted to show that to you. Copy Address button, I'll address that a little bit later in this presentation. Appointments is a quick way to see if this patient is coming in anytime soon, and you can see that there. The Susan Arlen is coming in September the 5th, 2016 at 9 a.m. And then the last button is to see if this patient has an e-statement. This will not work because we're using a demo version of Metasoft. We're not actually connected up. So you can certainly click on those to see what they say. Oh, I almost forgot to mention there's a little box up here that says inactive. If the case is no longer active, maybe it's been over 3 years since we've seen this patient, they might be put on an inactive status, and eventually the case would be closed. I'm sorry, the patient would be removed from the system, but here's a way you can make them inactive. The next tab over is called Other Information, and the definitions for this you'll find on page 139 and 140 in your book. Actually, it starts really on page 140 in your book. Who is this person who's coming in? Are they a patient or a guarantor? Now, hopefully you've talked about guarantors in the past, and you'll see the definition for that on page 140 in your book. A guarantor is the person who is financially responsible. In other words, who do we go to ask for payment? Who's going to pay up? Who do we put a lien against? Who do we send the bill to? That's the guarantor. When the patient is being seen by the physician and they are both the patient and the guarantor, we select patient. The only time we would create a guarantor is if the person who is financially responsible is not a patient. Classic example is a parent and child, and the office is a pediatrician's office. The guarantor would be the parent, and they would never be seen by the pediatrician. And this software dictates that you have to create a chart if the patient and guarantor aren't one and the same. So we would have a chart for the patient and a chart for the guarantor. Sometimes it's a little confusing, but it's more for the billing purposes than anything. We actually aren't going to do anything beyond if the guarantor's information, we need it for billing, but we actually won't have any other medical record on them. It's just the billing record. But for our purposes in this book, our patients will always be listed simply as patient. Assigned provider is next. That's who is the physician. Note that this plan has 6 physicians. If you look at yours and your first one is not Catherine Yan, you have some other doctor, and none of these doctors match, you have the wrong database. Please contact me as soon as possible and we'll get you squared away. And then if you click on the magnifying glass here to the right of that, you can see you have 6 physicians listed. Same window, just makes it bigger, and you can select whichever one you want there as well. Just another way to present it. Patient ID number 2 we won't be using. It might be used as a second ID system. We will not be using this box. We will not be filling in the patient billing code. Your practice might have different ways for patients for billing. Maybe everyone alphabetically A through H gets billed on the 1st of the month, and the next group of patients maybe on the 15th of the month. We're not going to do any of that. Patient indicator is also another optional window. We will not be filling this in. But we will be filling in the next one, which is a flag. Note that it is a color, and colors in our case have been assigned to insurance plans. So at a glance, you can see the patient's insurance plan. Okay, now hear me on this. This is only assigning a color. There will be another more complete way to assign the insurance company to the patient's account. This is right now just giving them color to their name. That's it. I know that sounds odd, but when we talk next week about creating the case, then it will make more sense. So humor me for right now. This is about just giving color to the patient so that it's a nice visual way to say, oh, this patient has Blue Cross Blue Shield, or oh, this patient does not have any insurance. Healthcare ID is a box that will be used later for HIPAA, another box we will leave blank. Real important sections here. We always want to make sure we have a check mark in the signature on file box. That checkbox indicates that the insurance says that you have to indicate the patient is signed on the paperwork saying that they're going to be financially responsible. If not, many insurance companies will say, yeah, we're not going to pay you. And we date that as well. So under the signature date, we'll put that in as well. We have a section where we can capture emergency contact information. For this book and the exercises in this book, we will leave that blank. Certainly you can fill them in, but they're just trying to make it a little bit easier so you don't have to fill that in all the time. Down at the bottom here, we have employment information. We have employer, and we have a list of employers. We'll learn how to put in new employers. We have, of course, the rest of that. What is the status of the patient, full or part-time, etc. Work phone, extensions, retirement dates, that sort of thing. So that takes care of this tab. And then we move to the payment plan tab, which you will see beginning a definition on page 143 in your book. We will not be using a payment plan. We haven't created any of that. But that is an option in the real world where you could say, okay, the patient contacted us, they're going to be paying us $50 a month, and it will be due, you can see here the first payment is due on maybe the 10th of the month. Payment is expected every 30 days. You could fill this in as needed. Okay, so this last tab we will not use. So we'll be using the first two. Creating a chart number, capturing demographic information, and a little bit of under other information. We'll leave it as patient. We'll make sure they have a doctor assigned to them. We'll assign them a color, make sure their signature is on file and dated, and if we have employment information, we'll capture that. So there you go. Now for fun, and they have you adding a new patient on page 144 in the book. Now, let me point this out to you now. You'll notice if you're following along with me on page 144, the very first sentence on exercise 4.2 says, using source document 1. All source documents are in the back of your book. They begin on page, and I actually have mine bookmarked with a yellow post-it note, 446. Okay, this is, and if you look with me on page 446 in your book, big bold at the top, source document number 1. Okay, this is their abbreviated patient information form. If you remember, we talked last week about how when we go to register at a doctor's office, there are 6 or 7 pages on a clipboard and we have to sit down and fill them all out. Well, they've consolidated that all down to this one page, and you really have to spend time reading this one page to get all the information out of it that you need, because it's jam-packed. So at the top, we're interested in the top portion only right now. Oh, well, in the insurance, a little bit of it. And exercise 4.2, beginning on page 144 through 145, tells you how to do this step by step. So I'll do this with you quickly here, but I'll demonstrate it. So I'm ready to create a new patient record. First, though, I'm going to make sure I don't have a T for Tanaka. The patient's last name is Tanaka. When I type in the letter T, I see I have no patients whose last name begins with T. I don't want to duplicate a patient that's already in there, so it's always good practice to check and make sure that they're not in there. I'm going to make sure my patient radio button is active so that this button, New Patient, is exposed. I'll click on that and I will get an empty form like the one that we just went through. Oh, sorry. Sometimes there it is. There we go. Make that nice and big. Now note that my cursor does not begin up in chart number. It starts flashing in last name. I've got to manually click up here to get up here. So if you forget, I'll be able to see that you didn't create your own chart number. And I want you to create that. So I'm looking on page 446 and I see the patient's last name is Tanaka, T-A-N-A-K. First name is H-I and then the number 0. There, I've just created a chart number for Hiro Tanaka. And I'm going to put in the patient. This is a female. I'm going to put in her first and last name. And I'll zip along pretty quickly here. 80 Cedar Lane. And I don't want to bore you with my typing here, so I'll just kind of capture. I guess I'll do this one here. 60089. By the way, I looked to see if there actually was a Stevenson, Ohio, and there is not, in case you're interested. I'll capture. I don't like putting in email addresses, but you do it. Cell phones, I'm complaining about all these. Sometimes these phone numbers are hard to see. So you kind of have to learn how to read this particular form. It can be challenging sometimes. We do have a work phone number and a cell phone number. So I'll get those captured really quickly here. And let me get in the cell just to indicate that I've got everything in here. Yeah. And birth date. Now I can move down into that 2/20/1981. This person is a female. The social security number. And again, if I were designing this form, I would design it quite a bit differently. The numbers are all over the place. The social security number is right under race. I would probably keep it up a little higher, but hey, who am I? What do I know? Race is Asian, ethnicity non-Hispanic, and language is English. Okay. Now at any point when I'm doing this, I could save this even though I haven't filled out other information. I can save it. It will take me right back. Notice that she's highlighted here. And oh, I forgot to fill in that second tab, so I just double click to open her. Back up. Make this big so we all can see it. And you'll note now I can't change her chart number. It won't let me up there. And if that happens, and if you made an error and you want to delete her, come back here and you have delete patient and you can start all over again. And it will ask you, are you sure you want to do this? I hope. Wait a minute. There it is. Everything will be deleted. Are you sure you want to? If you want to, select yes. I don't want to. I just want to show you that option in case you created the chart number incorrectly. Let me finish that second tab under other information. Okay. Now again, you will not, here's the one thing about these source documents, they do not tell you the doctors on them. So you have to go back to the exercise and read who the doctor is. And the only way I see that is in the very first sentence on page 144, a new patient of Dr. Yan. So I select Yan, skip this, this, and this. The flag is based on her insurance plan. Go back to the source document. I see her insurance plan is Ohio Care HMO. It's in the bottom half of the patient information form. Now you'll note that there is more information about the insurance plan. There's an ID number, a group number, an address. There's a copay. I'm not filling any of that in yet. That'll be for next time. There is a signature on file, and she signed this on October the 3rd, 2016. I'm skipping the emergency contact. And it says, hey, you know, this is August the 3rd, 2015. Do you know you put in a future date? Do you want to change it? No, I do not want to change it. It thinks I made an error. Okay, now that takes care of exercise 4.2. But if you look, she also has an employer in the top half of her source document. She works at McRae Manufacturing. If I look in my list, I will see I don't have McRae Manufacturing. What do I do? Okay. Exercise 4.3 tells you how to put that information in, and I'll do that with you here quickly as well. Couple of ways you can do this, and I'm going to erase this current one that's in there. I'm going to leave this window open, And I'll show you where we keep a list of and that's your key word, list of addresses of employers. So select lists, then addresses. You will see these are lists of employers. I want to simply add a new one. And the code for this is E for employer and then the first two letters of the company name. In this case, it's McCray Manufacturing, and then followed by 2 zeros. This is explained in your book on page, they give you in the exercise page 148, how to fill this in. Okay, so I'm going to quickly capture this little bit of information about McCray Manufacturing. I think it's Inc., isn't it? Yeah, it is. And the company's street address. And again, they are also in Stevenson, Ohio. I know by the time you're done with this, I have all these addresses memorized. Oh, and they want me to put in 8901. This is I'm on page 149 in the book if you're interested, wondering where I'm getting this information. I could also pull it off of the patient information form, but since they have it out here for me and it's all nice and bold, I'll just use it as this. I save this. Now McCray Manufacturing, notices at the bottom, is now in my list of employers. I can close this window down. And now if I click on my drop down arrow, there it is. It's all there, and I can look to see, is she a full or part-time employee? And going back to page 446, I can see that she is a full-time employee. Good. There. Done. Save that. And I now have a new patient in my database. There you go. That takes us through page 149. I talked about how to search in 150, 151, and the field box. You can certainly try those items as well. I do need to address all the rest of those. You can work through as well, all the way through exercise 4.6. And at the end of the chapter, just like in the previous chapter on page 155, you need to do it one more time with another new patient. Her name is Lisa Wright. Her source document is source document 2 on page 447. Do the same thing again, except this exercise, they don't give you the step-by-step instructions. One last thing I want to address, and that is it's a fun little key if you can remember it, and if you can't, that's fine. And it is, the definition of it is back a bit in the chapter. There it is, page 147. See this shortcut, and it's a yellow box. Here, I'll pull up. Let me go back up to the top here. I like Susan Arlen. I'm partial to her. Anytime you need to open up a new window for a database portion of something, if you press F8, let me go to other information, and let's go here. I'm in the employer. If you remember how we got to the employer, I went to lists and then addresses. With my cursor just in the employer box, if I press my F8 key, it will automatically pull up that new window that we got without me having to click on lists, then addresses, and then new. One keystroke got me to the same place. I can do the same if I go back here, and if I put my cursor, I think this should work, and just in the last name and then F8. Yeah, well, no, it didn't work. Did it not? No, that would have to be maybe out here. That's it. That's out here. I had to go out a screen, sorry. So F8 is a nice shortcut key if you want to remember it. You don't have to. There are other ways to do those same things, but I just wanted to show that to you. Okay, that wraps up the basics on entering patient information in Chapter 4.